Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Pet Food Puzzle Guy. Happy September. It is autumn, my favorite time of year. Here in Colorado, we don't get the colors. Some of you guys get back east. I do miss that, but we get the aspens. They're going to be changing soon. The elk are already in rut season, are already starting to bugle, so that's pretty cool. And all the tourists pretty much are leaving, which is wonderful. So anyway, welcome to the channel. I have been getting requests for a review of Iams and Eukanuba for a long time, and I apologize for taking so long to get to it. So I was curious to look at, this is dog food today, look at Iams Mini Chunks and Eukanuba Medium Adult, and see how they compared and how they compare. I figured I'd throw another diet in there, and Purina ProPlan is a good diet to compare with those. And this video really, I think, is a great example of that we're all kind of pet food bigots. We have our reasons why we're prejudiced against the diet, because either the marketing we've heard or haven't heard, or the price of it, or even where it's sold. I mean, come on, how many of you would say, well, Iams is sold at Walmart? Are any of you willing to buy pet food for your beloved pet at Walmart? Some of you are, and I'm not judging you, that's fine, but many of you aren't. You're just not gonna do that. So we really need to, what's the mantra of my whole channel, the whole reason for my channel? Show me the nutrients. Judge the food based on the nutrients delivered, not on the marketing and the hype and all the other stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at Iams and Eukanuba, and I think you're going to find it kind of surprising. Okay, so for those of you that aren't familiar with the Iams company, which I can't imagine any of you aren't, it really started way back in the 1920s, and Paul Iams was kind of one of those self-made men. He was not trained in nutrition, but somehow he was making a mink diet for a mink farm, I believe in Ohio, but somewhere out there. And so here he is making this carnivorous diet for these minks, obviously for their skin and coat. And the German Shepherds, the guard dogs, were eating the food and were thriving on it, doing really well. So, that was his idea, that dogs are true carnivores, meat eaters. And so he didn't have a lot to go by as far as education or anything, but he started selling dog food. And I don't really have all the details, but it goes way back. And that's how it got started. It was actually a mink food that turned into dog food, and his philosophy was meat first. He was way before the meat first, gimmick of today, but this is way back then. And those of you that might remember, back when I remember it, there was yellow puppy Iams, there was the green bag, which was Mini Chunks, and then there was a purple bag, which was Eukanuba. That was it. That's all they had. Now I find out today, or actually yesterday talking to the Iams company, Iams and Eukanuba are now two separate companies, operate separately under the umbrella of the Mars pet care umbrella. So it's all owned by Mars, but they do operate separately, and they're two separate companies. So I had to call two different companies to get the nutrient levels on their diets. But that was how they got started. And the Eukanuba, it's kind of funny, on their website, they explain that Eukanuba is a term that means like exceptional, like the top of the line, that kind of thing. And if you're familiar with Iams at all, you're kind of thinking that. I'm sure I was. Here's Iams is their regular food, and then Eukanuba is their premium. And Eukanuba, it's kind of funny, they don't put it in the website, but this is how I remember from how I learned it back in the day. Paul Iams was in college, and him and his buddies, if a cute girl walked by who was exceptional, the cat call they would use would be Eukanuba. So that obviously would not go today in today's so-called woke society, but that was what I remember from back in the 80s, that the term Eukanuba came from a cat call that he and his buddies would call pretty girls on campus. So there's some useless trivia that you really didn't need to know. Okay, so we are going to start with the Iams bag. So first of all, let's look at the ingredient panel real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it's interesting. It's going to be very eye-opening to see how we're so manipulated by marketing. Okay, so stick with me through this. I'll try to go as fast as I can. Here's the ingredient panel of the Iams chunks. You see chicken is the first ingredient. Oh, big whoop. We see that on every food, right? Ground whole grain corn is next. So that's mostly a carbohydrate, but there is protein in there and a few other things, fatty acids and such. Ground whole grain sorghum, same thing. Chicken byproduct meal. So we have chicken as a first ingredient. Chicken byproduct meal is what, third or fourth. And then soybean meal, which again is another protein source, adding some other amino acids that are low in the meat. So we're combining protein sources here. There's some dried egg product. That's great. Egg is a great protein source. So flaxseed for omega-3s, all good stuff in here. Then a bunch of your supplements and stuff. Let's go ahead and look at the guaranteed analysis. We don't usually do that, but I want to show you compared to these two diets, the Euk and the Iams. And we see 25% protein. Remember, these are just minimums and maximums. They're not telling us a whole lot. Fat level at 14%. So this is a semi-active food since the fat level is the major protein energy source is fat. If the fat number is really high, generally the calorie count is high and vice versa. So, you know, this looks like a typical normal food. The calcium, they're only telling us the minimum. And they're telling us the minimum is 1.05%. There is no phosphorus level here, which I'm disappointed. And the vitamin E, the minimum level of vitamin E is 130 international units per kilogram of food. That's always how you'll see it measured on food. Clearly, if a food says their minimum is 130, if it was higher, they would say, well, our minimum is 250 or our minimum is 500, whatever. So they're saying it's 130. So it's no lower than 130, but it's probably not much higher. A couple other things real quick on the Iams Proactive Health mini chunks. We see it was formulated to meet the nutrient profiles for maintenance. I love that it's just for maintenance. We have talked about in nauseam, unless you're brand new to my channel, if it said profiles for all life stages, what does that mean? It means all life stages, which includes puppyhood, which would be high nutrient levels for growing puppies. We sure don't want to be feeding that to your adult dog. So I want to see a profile just for maintenance, okay? That's really important. Now it was formulated. Formulated means it never went through feeding trials, but the Iams company has been making diets for a long time. They've done a lot of feeding trials with other diets. So this diet is just kind of an extension or family off some of those other diets. And again, I have no problem that it's formulated, that it doesn't have feeding trials. I think that's not a problem with a company that has a history of formulating diets. Now, if you're a brand new company that's just hit the market, like many have these days, and you look at their diets and you see, oh, they're all formulated, none of them are doing feeding trials, that's different. They've never tested their food, tested their whole process and everything to know, hey, we've got this. Now we're making another flavor or another variation. That's different. But for Iams, I'm okay with this just being formulated. And we have 381 kcals per cup of food. So remember that, because we're going to look at that when we look at Eukanuba. We have not looked at the actual nutrient levels. I'm saving that because I want to do both of these diets. Here's Eukanuba. Eukanuba's always been their top of the line, they're exclusive, they're, you know, whatever, they're gold standard. And the bag and the marketing still reflects that today. Again, I was just in the store, just taking these pictures, looking at the bags, and definitely Iams is considered kind of this healthy maintenance diet, very science oriented, and Eukanuba is their flashy performance, you know, this is the diet for you kind of thing, okay? And it's not just one Eukanuba diet anymore. It's not just Eukanuba in the purple bag. Now there's medium, small breed, performance, blah, 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 all kinds. So I said, well, just when I called the Eukanuba folks, I said, just give me your Eukanuba, you know, medium breed, just normal diet, because I wanted to compare it to the Iams product. If we look at the ingredient panel, look at that real quick. Chicken is the first ingredient. again, of course. Now they've moved, instead of corn, chicken byproduct meal, which is in the mini chunks. That's now second ingredient. So, ooh, that must be why it's a premium food, right? There's your corn. The main thing is, let's go ahead, if that's the marketing, we all agree it's pretty much, that's how they separate those two brands. Let's go ahead and go to my little black book, haven't done that in a while, and let's take a look at the actual nutrient levels. And we're going to look at the dry matter percentage, so that takes the moisture out of both foods, so we're getting a little more accurate measurement. Dr. Ray mentioned in her video today that I like milligrams per 100 kcals, and that is a great measurement. That's what nutritionists use. Milligrams per 100 kcals, that is for every calorie, how much of the nutrients are you getting? Because two foods could have very different energy levels. So if we're just looking at percentages, it could be skewed a little bit, okay? I will tell you, most of the foods we're looking at, there's not a big difference. Just like these two today, there's no difference in the energy level of Iams mini chunks and Eukanuba, even though I would have expected there to be. So dry matter just means we're taking the moisture out and getting a much more accurate number of the percentages in the food. And I always look at protein, of course, calcium and phosphorus, and I'll explain why in a minute, and then sodium usually as well. But the real key ones are the protein, calcium, and phosphorus, because it shows me how healthy the diet is, which is important. It also shows me if the company knows what they're doing and they're spending money to create a diet that is extremely balanced and specific for the life stage. And a good example is when you look at, anybody can throw protein in a diet. When you look at calcium and phosphorus, if it's restricted, that's very good. It's healthy for the kidneys. It's healthy for the liver. It shows that they're making a healthy diet, because the excesses can be bad, especially as that pet ages. But it shows the quality of the meat source. It shows the integrity of the company. If their meat sources are full of bone, hair, hoof, feathers, chicken lips, as I like to say, dirt, all kinds of stuff, it's going to drive that mineral level up, whether it's the calcium or the phosphorus. Then they're going to have to add calcium or phosphorus to get the correct ratio. And what happens is those numbers get higher and higher. When I see high numbers, I know it's low quality meat sources they're using. It's a low quality food, and I shouldn't be feeding it. So that's why I look at protein, calcium, and phosphorus. It reveals the quality of the food. Those ingredient panels we just looked at with Eukanuba and Iams mini chunks, you have no idea as a consumer when you see that chicken, whether you see that chicken byproduct meal. Is it from human grade chickens? Is it from 4D meat? Is that dead, diseased, dying, and disabled? You have no idea the quality of it until you do what we're going to do now and look at the mineral content. So we have Iams chunks. Let's go ahead and put up their numbers. 29.6% protein. The calcium and phosphorus, it's always listed together. Well, usually we saw in the one Euc bag, it didn't show that, but calcium and phosphorus, they have an interrelationship. That's why they're always usually together. But we have calcium at 1.3%, phosphorus at 0.98. Now, that is a little higher than the optimal level of 1 for calcium and 0.8 for phosphorus, but barely. I mean, it's just a 10% difference or so. I'm kind of impressed, to be honest. Protein level is fine. It's right within that optimal range. So pretty impressive for a product sold at Walmart. Let's go ahead and look at the premium food, the Eukanuba. Eukanuba adult, guess what? Protein level, 29.3%. So basically the same. Calcium and phosphorus, 1.3% and 1.0% phosphorus. That's surprising. That shows me that Iams and Eukanuba are basically using the same quality ingredients, which is pretty good looking at these levels. A little higher than that perfect optimal range, but still not bad. Way better than many diets that I've reviewed for a whole lot more money. And this is the point. Get this point, okay? This is so important. I would have assumed Eukanuba would be higher in energy. or lower in minerals because they're using higher quality meat sources. Why? Because the price is so different. I would just assume that because that's how marketing works in our heads. Okay, I'm sure that's how it works for you. The point is, when I look at these two diets, I'm going to show you price in a minute, but when I look at these two diets, energy levels are the same, mineral levels are the same, protein levels are the same. What's the difference? Marketing. Marketing is the only difference here. Now, let's take it a step further. What about the price? What would you expect to pay for a product that's at Walmart versus a product that's in PetSmart? You know, the Iams versus Eukanuba. Well, I was in PetSmart today, and the Mini Chunks 30-pound bag, they both have 30-pound bags. Works out, it was $46.99 for a 30-pound bag, $1.56 a pound. The Eukanuba adult, $77.99 for that 30-pound bag, and a price per pound of $2.59. That's pretty amazing to me. That's pretty surprising. Those of you that say, what do I feed my dog? I'm so guilted by Farmer's Dog and Ollie and all these other diets out there that tell me how terrible kibble is and everything. I can't afford that, but I feel guilty if I walk into Walmart and buy some cheap Iams. Okay, well, there you go, $2.59 a pound for Euka adult, and you're not getting anything different than you're getting in Mini Chunks. Not even the vitamin E levels were much different. So that's really surprising. Now, let's be even more surprised. You ready to be, I mean, don't we just love this stuff? This stuff's so great. We're just such pet food nerds. Let me throw ProPlan Adult. Now, ProPlan is a great diet fed by millions of dogs, fed, you know, in kennels. Some of your champion dogs, you know, Westminster and all. I mean, Purina's, I'm not judging Purina at all, but let's compare the nutrient levels in ProPlan Adult to Iams Mini Chunks. Okay, now that we've established Mini Chunks did a great job next to Eukanuba. So what do we have for ProPlan Adult? The protein level is 34.2%, so it's a little higher in protein, a little out of the optimal actually, which is a little surprising, but that's okay. Healthy kidneys can handle that. Diseased kidneys can't. That would be the difference. If we look at calcium and phosphorus, 1.53% calcium, 1.1% phosphorus. Iams actually beats ProPlan Adult in the calcium and phosphorus levels. Now, to be fair to ProPlan, they're giving you more protein, so you're going to get a little more phosphorus and maybe a little more calcium with it, depending on the meat sources. They have to get that correct. But that's interesting. If I took away the names, I would be picking Mini Chunks as my diet of choice to reduce the risk of disease, kidney disease, urinary stones, that kind of thing in my adult dog. But when I look at the names, again, it's kind of like we're pet food bigots, where ProPlan, I have no problem telling people I feed ProPlan. Some of you, though, I'm sure, not all of you, some of you are fine with Iams, I'm sure, but many of you would say, well, I would never go buy my pet food at Walmart. You know, Iams, it's so cheap. And it is pretty darn cheap. $46.99 a bag versus $77.99. That's significant if you're on a budget. And in this ridiculous market you're in with everything costing so much, I'm pretty impressed. I mean, I'm not an Iams rep, but I definitely would say, you know, Iams is looking pretty darn good here. Now, if I put Farmer's Dog and Ollie, their nutrient levels next to these, they're even higher because those are all life stage foods. That's what makes me nuts when I watch these Farmer's Dog commercials that fill my Facebook and YouTube, even my own channel, which really makes me nuts. Oh, you know, my dog's 21 and he wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Farmer's Dog and da 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 da. Yeah. You know what? At least Farmer's Dog gives me the nutrient levels. And what do I find? The calcium levels are like 2 point something. Double that of ProPlan. Double that of Iams Chunks. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. But because it's an all life stage food, because it's fancy and it's home delivered and it's got your dog's name on the bag and all, they can offer ridiculous prices. And when you look at the nutrients provided, it's nothing better. As a matter of fact, Iams Chunks would give you a healthier profile. There it is. Those are the numbers, guys. I'm not making this stuff up. So there you go. So that is why I have my channel, because and I'm learning as much as you are, and I'm just trying to do my little tiny part. I know I'm tiny out there, and I'm only on YouTube to help pet parents make wiser choices and really not be ripped off by the pet food marketers out there. You know, there's pet food companies. There's some small ones that are actually pretty great. I mean, you can see some of the videos I've made, and then there's others that are just dishonest, and it's really frustrating. And I was thinking about this the other day. I actually have a live Q&A I'm doing with uh, a pet food Facebook group tomorrow night. I don't know how that's going to go. We'll see if I can pull that off. But please let me know if you've stayed with me this far, then you're one of my nutrition mission folks. Put in the comments, would you be interested in us doing a live Q&A? Is that something you'd want to try? Seems a little weird because you're talking and you just have to wait for people to comment, but I'm willing to give it a try. I'm going to give it a try with that Facebook group tomorrow night. We'll see how that goes. But if those of you on YouTube want to do it, let's give it a shot. So I need to know, hey, I'm interested. I think it'd be fun. And also when. Maybe Saturday morning is best, or a weeknight, whatever. Let me know. But I hope this has been helpful with Iams. This was very eye-opening to me. It just confirms you don't, that old adage you pay for really is not true when it comes to pet food. Really appreciate the comments and all. Keep them coming, and I will do my best to answer them. It's starting to get it's starting to get a little tougher. I lose messages and then I find them later. So, but I hope you all know I really do appreciate it. It feels like I have a bunch of new friends in America and up in Canada. Got a few of you guys up in Canada there that are awesome. So thanks again. Take care.